Welcome to Qatar. This special programme is being brought to you with the support of CFM International. My name is Mark Pilling.
And I'm Peaford. And we're in Doha for the Arab Air Carriers AGM. The first time in 2 years that the airline leaders and the industry specialists have all got together. And boy, is it great to be back.
This region has been hit harder than most by the crisis, with Arab economies being hit by falling oil revenues and a drastic fall in critical international travel and tourism business. And it will take longer for the Arab world to recover, according to AACO Secretary General Abdul Wahab Teffaha.
In the Arab world, most of the traffic is international. Domestic markets, although they are there in Saudi Arabia and in Algeria, but they are nowhere near the massiveness of the US or China. But generally speaking, when we talk about international travel per se, we will find that everybody is suffering at almost the same level.
IATA CEO Willie Walsh agreed.
The Arab carriers have been particularly hit by this pandemic because about 97% of their business is international, and it's international travel that has seen the vast majority of the restrictions imposed. In most cases, as you know, domestic markets have recovered almost to where they were in 2019. Indeed, in the case of Russia, it's almost 30% ahead of where it was in 2019. But for the Arab carriers, it's all about reopening international borders. And I think we're beginning to see movement in that direction.
In an audience poll, almost 90% of delegates backed the CEO panellists in predicting that despite the reliance on international routes, recovery should happen by 2024 or sooner. But this relies on governments relaxing prohibitive and inconsistent regulations.
The message to the governments is people want to go back to normal within the biosafety measures that are needed in order to fight that pandemic until hopefully soon that it is eradicated. It depends on you governments to allow people to travel. If you apply harmonious measures, risk-based measures on travel and tourism, then people will travel.
What has always impressed me about the Gulf carriers is the support that they get from their governments, because governments here recognise the economic contribution that aviation brings to the region, and that's what's enabled the significant growth that we've seen in this region.
The airlines can certainly see opportunity in adversity or preparing for the new tomorrow.
The dynamic of an LCC gave us the opportunity also to restart very quickly. And also you had the opportunity to decide where the business was, where the people were ready to fly, because particularly the restart of the business, and it's still the case is today, it is not really with a particular country. Every country keeps changing based on the circumstances they go through. So for us, I think the opportunity was clean up the business and move forward. There was a bit of pain in the middle, but I'm glad to see that the pain is behind us now.
In terms of Royal Jordanian, we're currently about 65 to 70% of our original network in terms of flights and frequencies, and we've announced a 5 to 7 year plan to really improve the destinations within the region and beyond the region. Royal Jordanian has a very good brand within the Levant region, and this is what we are leveraging. Also, we want to renew the fleet. Again, the fleet over the past difficult period in our region has not been renewed as fast enough as we would like. So now we're currently in the process of renewing the fleet, plus growing at the same time.
There are, of course, some AACO member airlines that have had it even harder than most. But even here, there is positivity.
Buying used aircraft, but for us it's a new aircraft, but we will use it in the same route we are using the same routes. We are using now our routes to Cairo, Amman, India, and we have it to Khartoum in Sudan, and we have flights to Jeddah and Riyadh. That's what we have, and we will maintain the same routes in this the next year. And we will see after the war is over, maybe we'll look for other routes.
We used to operate about 52 destinations. All African countries, there is Africa there. But what we hope is to have our 2 airplanes now coming back, and we are going to proceed toward Africa and toward Europe.
I'm just here with Richard Quest, and he's been on stage with the leaders, the glitterati in the Arab airline world and the industry, etc. Richard, what's your big takeaway from being on stage? What have you heard?
I think there are 2 distinct areas. The first would be those areas that are common to all aviation. Coming out of a pandemic, what does your route structure look like? What does your commercial operation look like? How do you even operate in this post-pandemic world? And then you have the issues that are unique to this part of the world. You've got the 3 Gulf carriers which dominate. You've then got other carriers which are regionally based. You've got carriers that are trying to build new route structures, some government-backed, others. You've got low-cost carriers that are independent. And you realise that it's a vibrant market, but it is undergoing the same structural changes as everybody else.
But of course the Gulf carriers, they've had so much dominance. They've both dominated the world of aircraft development. They've been the ones that have invested and expanded, maybe not profitably, but they've done it. Can they continue doing it?
Oh yes, and why wouldn't they? Because they have one great advantage, which is, well, several advantages. Firstly, geography. Now, you take the European carriers all up here, they can shuttle people into Europe, but you're sort of shuttling in and then you've got your 13 hours. Here, you've got a 6 and a 6, a 5 and a 10. So here, you've still got that geographic availability. Secondly, airport infrastructure. Do not deny the importance of that. You've got large airports with modern conditions that can operate 24 hours a day, that are not slot restricted or restricted by time, by zones. That gives them a huge advantage. And then finally, you do have to say the question of the commercial imperative. Now, I think that's going to change. Governments are not prepared to lose money in the levels that they have in the past, but at the same time, these airlines are not run for the benefit of commercial shareholders, and that makes a difference.
We are committed to achieve a decarbonization of the air transport industry, but we need the governments to play their part in reforming the infrastructure from air traffic management to airports, and eradicating delays and congestion, because that actually increases the aviation footprint on the environment.
I think we're all in this challenge together, but governments, regulators and policy setters have got a really big part to play in this. Governments in particular need to think through quite carefully how they use more of the carrot, i.e. incentivisation, than the stick in the context of maybe taxation or punitive measures, particularly when we're talking about things like sustainable aviation fuels. So Etihad on the 23rd of October, only 3 weeks ago, ran a sustainable demonstration flight between London Heathrow and Abu Dhabi with 38% sustainable aviation fuel mix. It was 38% because we couldn't get access to any more. Couldn't get any more. And obviously there's the challenge of that, plus the fact it's currently 3 times X the price of conventional fuel. So I think this is where governments can play a big part.
Yeah, I mean, this is the airline business. It's always been challenges. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest challenges that the airline industry ever had. To actually, half of your planes and a lot of your destinations have been, effectively grounded for a long period of a year. But the airline industry has always faced all kinds of crises, all the different diseases that happened, the different bans that happened, regional issues and regional conflicts and so on. On top of that, sustainability is a challenge. I think there is time enough to be able to sort yourself out. We're talking about a 30-year period for the airline industry to get to zero emissions, which is doable. But it does require everybody to be involved, not just the airlines.
Well, it's been encouraging, hasn't it, to see the Arab air carriers all speaking with one voice on these issues. Actually, probably better than I'm doing with a voice at all. But I was encouraged particularly by the airlines, particularly some of the smaller airlines in the region, talking about the need for refleeting and getting new aircraft. So there is some bright dawn on the horizon, Mark.
There is, Alan, but let's be careful. Before that sun gets too bright, there is pressure on the industrial partners in the issue of sustainability. So let's look at that one as well.
Okay, and we're off to the Dubai Air Show, of course, where all of that's going to come under the microscope.
Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.